It was kind of funny when I realized that I was going to be given a message on something that our pastor Morgan had given a message on. My level of excitement was up there because every time that I have been blessed with hearing him speak, giving a presentation or a sermon or a message, there has always been something in there that resonated with me, either inspiration, conviction, or just confidence to boldly go before my Father. And also, it was kind of funny because I had this little juvenile or childish thing inside of me thinking, oh, this is awesome. I get to put my grubby mitts on his message notes. And I hope he gets a chance to watch this. I had a bunch more I was going to razz him about, but I'm not going to do that. One of the good things is, if you haven't seen his message, you can go back from our app and go back and see the message that he gave, and I most definitely recommend that. Tonight, we're going to be picking up in 1 Samuel chapter 18, 1 through 9. The Israelites are returning home to Jerusalem after their victory over the Philistine army. And we're going to look how David was growing in favor and popularity among the Israelites. And we see his friendship with Jonathan grow and how strong the bond and love between those two men were. This was like the first bromance in the Bible. But I think it goes deeper than that, because these men, without hesitation, would have died for the other one. We also see how David found favor with Saul. Saul took him into his own house, where he treated him like he was family. He gave him these tasks to do, put him in charge of all these men that were probably more experienced than him, younger than him, to go out and fight. He was a faithful servant. And when they were marching back from Jerusalem, King Saul began to notice the way people viewed him. So we're going to read through 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 9 real quick. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. He loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and all Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, with joyful songs and timbrels and lyres. As they danced, they sang, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s." Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me only with thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. Would you guys join me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you and I praise you for the opportunity, for the call that you put on each and every person's life. And Lord, I pray that you help and empower each and every one of us to walk fully in that call, knowing all the things that you say about us. Thank you, dear Heavenly Father. So, have any of you all ever been jealous of anyone?
No.
I'm jealous of that. Well, I'm here to tell you I have. My childhood was not the best. There was lots of abuse, things of that nature. Oh, don't make me do it. And I can remember my earliest time of being jealous. You know, at one point I was going to say when I was about a year and a half old, wanting another toy a kid had, but honestly, I can't remember back that far. But it was of my cousins and their families and seeing how they were able to thrive, how they were loved. And it wasn't a jealousy that turned me angry or hatred towards them, but it was a jealousy that ended up making me isolate. It gave me insecurities and made me seek approval and acceptance in all the wrong places. And those were bad habits. I do know of other times I've been jealous to where I've been severely angry with a person and often had ill thoughts of them. But guess what? His grace is sufficient for me, and his power is made perfect in my weakness. And I also will always claim James 5:16 that when we confess with others, that is how we're healed. Not forgiven, healed. God forgives, but the healing comes through sharing with others when we end up being vulnerable. So, to go back to the story, we see how a friendship can be strong and how someone can find favor. And King Saul had given favor towards David. I wasn't there, but I really think that there was a moment where he was proud of Saul. He wanted to take him in and bring him. There's another version of this that said David was not able to return home. So it's like he was there as one of them. And David also was very successful at doing the things that Saul had set him out to do. I think before I tear into the jealousy part a little bit, I want to go back to being called. And I know there's times in my life where I've had doubts on the direction I feel that God is pointing me to go. But I also know from all the examples in the Bible that those people are called and then qualified. But now I look at this story and I see how God was qualifying David all along when he was tending the sheep, and the things that he would do was qualifying him for something bigger and better. Saul had messed up prior to his jealousy with David. Jealousy is the fruit of insecurity. So there was a point where Saul was growing anxious, waiting for Samuel, and took matters into his own hands. And that is when he lost favor through disobedience. And I think that it would be similar to me having a regret. And why did I do that? Somebody else is now doing something that I was supposed to do, or that I was made to do. Or why didn't I do that? I can imagine things like that going through Saul's mind and seeing how David was now winning favor with all the Israelites, all of the men in the army. I don't understand how it could be to the point of wanting to murder him, but we have lots of examples in that in the Bible, of that in the Bible also. Cain and Abel, Solomon's 2 wives. Jealousy so bad that she'd rather have that child split in half. One of the good things about God's plans is, guess what? His plans go through regardless of our participation. If we're called to do a plan, if we don't step up to our calling, somebody else will do that and carry that plan out, just like David did. Saul was supposed to be the one that was supposed to slay Goliath, and David stepped up and did that. God's plan was fulfilled there. Saul was supposed to rule over Israel, and that was supposed to carry on. He didn't step up to his calling, and then that traveled on through David and his line. One of the things about sins and jealousy, particularly this one, but when something starts off small, it doesn't end up staying there. It manifests into something else. And this is what happened with Saul. He had an eye on him. He was displeased. He was upset that they were saying these things about David that were greater than the things that he had done in his own sight. And it manifested to him eventually throwing a spear and chasing David down like he was a dog to kill him. I know from my own experience how my insecurities led to a jealousy and what bad habits those ended up manifesting, which are now struggles that I have to work with on a daily basis. And one of those I'll share with you is a critical spirit. But one of the things that I've started to learn about some of my struggles is that when I am critical, guess what? I've got those 2 fingers pointing out, and I've got the 6 fingers pointing back at me. And there's something that bothers me that about them that I see inside of myself that I need to work on. And that is a blessing that I can see that. I can turn that around. You know who understood what it looked like to live above jealousy early in his life? David. The guy that Saul was jealous of. He said in Psalm 139, God, I know you created me. I know you spent time thinking of what I could do, who I would be, and how I could have part in your plans here on earth. And he says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. I look at the condition and the differences between Saul and David, and what it comes down to is the posture of the heart. When I was a child, I so looked up to David as this big, mighty warrior, and now I admire him for the nature of his heart, and I admire that, and I hope to be able to model a similar heart to that. Morgan left us with a prayer last Sunday, and I think that it's worth repeating. This prayer is that the desire of my heart would be to give my life to becoming everything God created me to be. That the quality of my life, the success of my life, wouldn't be based on trying to outlive the people around me, but it would be in discovering and living out the life God created me for as his loved creation. Not to outdo this guy over here, not to strive to be like this guy over here, but to rest in the knowledge that the greatest life I could possibly live is pressing into everything God has in store for me. Not only are we called, but he calls us. He calls us treasured. He calls us chosen. He calls us beloved. And when I think of those things that he calls me, that's where I can find that confidence. And then I can rest in knowing who I am because of what he says, because of who I am in Jesus Christ, and not focused on all these things or people around me. One last thing I wanted to share with you all is that sometimes that jealousy starts with, what about me? Why not me? And I have found that when my heart tends to go to that direction, that it has a manner of thinking, well, I deserve that. But I'm here to tell you that I do not want what I think I deserve. I want everything that I don't deserve. And that's why I can be grateful for everything that I have. I am going to ask Kaeli to come up. And I'm so glad I got to be your opening act tonight.
That was so good. As I have been, yes. As I have been reflecting over this topic of jealousy, and even just in my own personal study, we're walking through a book in our growth group right now about measuring up and where are you finding your worth in. And the question that has just been echoing in my heart since we started this is Jesus asking me, are you satisfied with me? And I think it's really easy when we start feeling either jealous or bitterness or buying things, like it comes up in little itty bitty ways that we have a heart issue going, I'm trying to compare myself to somebody, or I'm trying to gain, and jealousy takes root. And if we catch it when it's little, of just realizing we're trying to find satisfaction in something other than Jesus, it doesn't grow into this festering thing. And so the question over and over that's been asked is, are you satisfied with me? Our culture tells us that we are never enough. You aren't enough. Your house isn't big enough. There's more to buy. There's more to do. And we can see that Jesus is the only thing that truly satisfies. And that is the cure in this whole thing. When we rest in who Jesus is, when we rest in who he has called us to be, and then we get to cheer each other on, that's kingdom. And it's beautiful. And then Jesus is more than enough, and he's overflowing. He's overflowing for you, and he's overflowing for me. And Jim said this verse, and Morgan said it on Sunday, and Di challenged us with it for a month, of Psalms 139:23. Search me, God, and know my heart. So I want us to get in a posture of surrender right now. Heads bowed. You can do whatever you need to get in a place where you can ask Jesus once again, search me, God, and know my heart. And I want to ask you some challenging questions. I've had to ask myself, and I'm saying let's do this together. Where have you allowed comparison to slip in? Where have you replaced Netflix with quiet time with Jesus? Where has discontentment planted seeds of jealousy? And in what areas are you feeling unworthy or insecure? I love Matthew 26. I have fallen in love with communion in a way that I have never before, and I think it's because of moments like this as we get to see Jesus change the script for us. He took the religious culture that said you have to be perfect in order to come to God, and he said, it's through me. So together, we're going to take the bread. While eating, Jesus took the bread, and when he gave thanks and he broke it. And he said to his disciples, saying, take this and eat it. This is my body. Let's take it together. And then he took the cup, and he had given thanks. And he said to them, drink it for all of you. This is my blood, the new covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin. I tell you, I will not drink from its fruit of the vine from now on until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Let's take the cup together. Would you pray with me? Oh, Jesus, thank you. Thank you that you are the bread and the cup, and you have given us new. Jesus, thank you that you are the only thing that satisfies. And Jesus, I pray that a refreshing spirit would come over everyone who can hear my voice right now, that they would feel your love and peace like never before, that all of the places that we are trying to stuff and fill our worth and our abilities and our enoughness, would you take it? Would you show us who you see us as? Would we get a pure picture of the way that you created us, that we are in your image, and that you take all of the religious stuff and you just say, come close. So Lord, would you satisfy us in a way that we haven't in a long time, or maybe we've forgotten. And Jesus, we just thank you for what you're doing. Lord, I pray right now just a blessing over everybody who's in this room. Lord, I thank you so much that we get to be together, that we get to break bread together and have community. And I just thank you for what you are doing within Everett and the greater area, Jesus. And we just want to make you known. So in your name, amen.